everybody, I'm so excited that you are here. I hope that you got to hear my story about Pete the cat and his 4 groovy buttons. Why am I talking about buttons and bringing Pete into it? Well, the national holiday I'm celebrating today is about buttons, and it made me take out my tin that my grandmother used to have, and it made me go through my buttons and see all the different beautiful buttons that she had over the years, and all the memories of what I used to do and sit down and sort them by color, by shape, by texture. You name it, I did it. Oh, look at this beautiful blue one. Or this one that was like made of pearl. Oh, there's just so many things that you can imagine when you're looking at buttons. Like, who wore them before? Where did they go? Were they a famous director walking down the red carpet and they lost a button? Well, then how would I get that? Well, anyway, you just think of all these different things, and I'm excited to present to you a story called The Button Box. Just like me, when I would sit down and open the buttons when I would visit my grandmother. And this story was written by Margarette Reid and illustrated by Sarah Chamberlain. And I want to share it with you and have you go on a trip down my memory lane anyway. And maybe it'll help you ask your parents about it. And maybe they have an idea about these buttons, because it was something that was very familiar years ago in your house or at your grandma or grandpa's house. So I'd be surprised when you come back and you tell me you've heard about the button box. And I would love for you to like and subscribe so you can keep coming back on these fun adventures with me. And don't forget to support your author. I did not write this story, but I'm glad that they did, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. So please go to your local library. You can pick up this story if you like it and you want to share. This would be great if you wanted to share it with your grandma or grandpa and ask them about it. And you know, it's one thing we don't do too much of anymore is get inside everyone's memories so you can hear what they enjoyed and you'll celebrate it too. And you can also purchase this book online or at a local bookstore. I'm sure they'll help you to purchase it. They know a lot of things. The Button Box. My grandma has a special box. I like to play with what's inside. Oh, look at all those buttons. Oh, see this metal one? I have one like that. Oh, and I have one just like that. And wait a minute. Is that a picture of my box? I swirl the buttons round and round, and then I pick the ones I like. Yes, I used to do this too, out on her carpet. Just spread them all out to see all the little ones and some of the big ones that were hidden by all the little ones. 10 have flowers painted on them, just like Grandma's china dishes. I like to sort them first. Next, I look for sparkly buttons. I pretend they're jewels that once belonged to kings and queens and movie stars. What? That's just kind of like what I was just saying. Some buttons are covered with cloth, satin, velvet, or corduroy. They make me think of fancy clothes. There are metal buttons from overalls and jeans, leather ones from cowboy shirts and sweaters. This looks like one from Grandpa's winter coat. Grandma says these small ones came from shoes worn long ago. That's true. I do remember my grandmother saying sometimes that she would take buttons off of things that she can no longer fix anymore, but she kept the button because you just never really knew when you might need one or what it would look like, and you try to match it as best you could. Next, I sort the shiny buttons that come from uniforms. I line them up like marchers in a big parade. The one with the eagle I call Mr. President. See, and I just showed you something like that in my old tin from my grandma. I wonder where she got that one. I pull out all the pearly ones and make a rainbow pattern. When does little change to big? I can never tell. You see how little they are? And then they start gradually getting bigger and bigger, different colors. Like I was showing you, I had a pearly one in there too. Some buttons have 4 holes, some have 2. Some don't have any sewing holes. They have shanks instead. Those are the little parts behind the button where, like you said, have you ever even looked at a button? Really? There are 2 holes, 4 holes, no holes. And the ones with no holes have this little secret little part in the back. I never knew what it was called until I just read that. You see, you learn something on these learning adventures. Well, at least I hope you do. Maybe you already knew that, but I didn't know that. So even at my age, I'm still learning something new every day. A shank. Okay. These make good eyes on puppets or stuffed animals. Yes, that's right. Sometimes when Grandma sorts with me, we play a special game. We stir the buttons, shut our eyes, and then we each take one. Grandma asks, are they alike? That's a good one. Because you have to think and you have to come up with words and find what's alike or what's different, right? Mine is wooden, so is hers. Both are round and flat. But hers is thick and mine is thin. She puts my button on a string. Whirl it around, she says. The string twists up. I pull the ends and we listen to it hum. That's true, you can do that. Did you know that you can actually play with buttons in so many different ways? Grandma tells me that some buttons used to be. Some were seashells, some were even sand. Big furnaces heat the sand until it melts. Do you know what it melts into if you melt sand at a very high temperature? Did someone say glass? Yes, that's what it is. When it cools, it's glass. And there were buttons like this. I actually remember one that looked very similar to this. Wooden buttons come from trees. Deer shed their antlers every winter and grow new ones in the spring. I like the buttons made from their old horns. Yeah, they used to do that too. How cool is that? When it's time to put the buttons back, I pretend I'm very rich, counting all my gold. I like to feel the buttons then, the bumpy and the smooth. I like the way they sound clickety-tappity, falling through my fingers one by one into the box. That's a sound that I like too, because it brings back all these memories. It's funny what sounds can do and how sounds can make you feel. Some sounds, think about it, some sounds scare us if it's too loud or unexpected. And some sounds we connect with things that we used to do or places we've been, and it brings back a memory just like that. And when I took out my tin and I opened it up and I heard that sound, I was instantly in my mind back at my grandma's house about to dump them out on the rug and go on an adventure with buttons. Who knew? Then Grandma puts the box away where it will wait till next time. I wonder who first figured buttons out. I never thought of that either. Or maybe I did, but had moved on. But on the last page of this book, the author did an amazing job of giving us a little history about buttons. And I think I'm going to read that too, because I found it really interesting. But if you need to go right now, thanks for stopping by. I hope that you like this story about buttons, and maybe it'll inspire you too to think about them and look at them. I bet now you're going to start looking at buttons and seeing if they have 4 holes, 2 holes, or none. And if you want to stay and hear the rest of this history, I'm going to read it to you right now. It says, button, buttons. Who invented buttons? No one knows who first figured buttons out, but when archaeologists dig up towns and cities thousands of years old, they find pieces of stone, bone, clay, and metal that look like buttons. For a long time, buttons were used with loops. Then, about 800 years ago, someone thought of fastening a piece of cloth by making a slit in it and slipping the button through. The buttonhole had been invented. See, even you can invent things. Sometimes it's just an idea, and then when you put it into practice, voila, everyone loved it because you thought of something that they needed. Around the 13th century, kings and courtiers began to wear buttons to show how rich and important they were. One French king had a suit covered with 13,600 buttons. What? What was the size of his grandma's tin box? Sorry. Laws to keep ordinary people from wearing fancy buttons didn't last long. Over the years, button makers carved, stamped, and molded buttons from ivory, pewter, glass, and a variety of other materials. Artists painted pictures of everything imaginable on buttons. Men wore buttons with pictures of their horses or dogs on them. Cut steel buttons sparkled on ladies' gowns. Tiny pearl buttons decorated children's clothes. During the American Revolution, patriots refused to buy English buttons, just as they refused to pay a tax on tea. Paul Revere of the famous Midnight Ride made fine silver buttons. Special buttons were designed for the inauguration of George Washington. Although people still have buttons to use over and over, today many people collect them just for the fun of it. Well, I showed you all the fun that this story brought up in my mind's memory, and I still enjoy looking at the buttons. And maybe it's a thing that people don't really do, but you might just get into it because it really is interesting. And when I look at buttons, it reminds me how, yes, they're all called buttons, but each one is very unique with the size and the color and the shape and all the other details, just like you and me, right? We're all humans, but we're all unique. Some have glasses and different color hair. Some are tall, some are short. There's all different things about us that make us unique. So I would love for you to tell me about your button box and your discovery of all the fun that buttons can bring. Hey, I hope that you had a good time, and I'm so glad that you stayed along. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can keep coming on these learning adventures with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.